Hello, and welcome to episode 219 of The Joy of Coding. How's it going? My name is Mike Conley. We're going to be hacking on Firefox stuff today. I hope you're well. I hope, wherever you are, it's June 24th today, so at least here where I am in Canada, things are starting to get a little bit warmer. The weather is getting nicer. People are starting to, we're able to go outside a little bit more now, so that's kind of nice. The sun is shining and it's getting warm. So if you're also experiencing a nice change in weather, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it safely. Let's get started. What are we doing today? Let me just share my screen. A couple of things. Well, first of all, here's the agenda. If you're new to the stream, welcome. Nice to see you. Nice to have you here. My name, again, is Mike Conley, and if you've never seen this stream before, I want to let you know that no plan survives breakfast. I say this at the beginning of every stream, and it's because none of what I'm about to do is like pre-written or pre-scripted. I'm not reading from a script. I'm not going to be like writing down solutions or typing out solutions that have been pre-thought out or anything. I remember thinking about this the other night. This is a little bit like long form improv, except I'm programming rather than like entertaining. And so, you're going to be watching me do real software development in the raw, real explorations. I'm going to get stuck. I might get sidetracked. Things might go wrong. It's okay. It's all part of the plan, for which there is no plan. That's the first thing. Second thing is check out the agenda. The agenda that we're looking at is something you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the handout section. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description down below. And if you're on Twitch, I'm about to drop the link into the Twitch chat in a second. Beach Jar, hey, it's been a while since, it's been a couple years, Beach Jar, nice to hear from you. Beach Jar says, wow, intro is still as baller as I remember it being. Shout out to the composer, the writer of that intro music. That's from my good friend Barn Costello, and he, if you're familiar with the band Sloan, they're a Canadian band. I don't know if they've really gotten big outside of Canada, but if you're curious to know what the inspiration of that song is, there's of our intro song, the song "She Says What She Means" by Sloan. If you listen to that, you find it on YouTube. That is the hook of that song is kind of the inspiration for the Joy of Coding stuff, so you can check that out. And if you're interested in checking out some other stuff that Barn has written, he's actually been posting a lot of really interesting stuff on his YouTube page. In particular, he's got a couple of acoustic covers of Faith No More songs that I really enjoy. I'm actually going to put a link to that in here. Barn Costello's YouTube page. Barn Costello being the composer of the theme. Composer of the Joy of Coding theme. Check it out. Okay, so where was I? There is an episode guide. I actually do think there are a couple of episode guide entries in the hopper to review, but I'm not going to do that today. You could check out the episode guide if you'd like, but what I'd really like to do is just plow ahead and work on some stuff, because I've got some interesting things I think to work on. First thing though, I want to talk a little bit about next week. So next week is Canada Day. So that's actually a day off for me, but I'm going to do something special on that day. I'm actually still going to stream. I've got an agreement with a guest. So for the first time ever, I think I've had a guest like sit next to me during one of these things before briefly, but I'm going to have a guest for the entirety of an episode if all goes well. Her name is Yuri Wims. She's currently a software developer at a company called Ecobee. And she was contracting for the Mozilla Foundation for a while, and we connected at some point. And she was interested in like doing a Joy of Coding together. So I thought, let's do it. Let's find. If she reached out recently and reminded me, I was like, yeah, let's totally do it. So next week, somehow Yuri and I are going to figure out a way of exploring some code together and working on it together. There are some interesting collaborative tools that we can use. I think both VS Code and Atom allow you to like both work on an editor at the same time over a network. So we're going to be like testing that out, and we'll see how it goes. So that's next week on July 1st, 2020, episode 220. Yeah, special guest Yuri Wim. So come check it out. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that there is an update to those tests. Do you remember we were working on those tests for the about home caching mechanism? That they landed. We have the tests running, and I can actually show you some interesting things about them. I mean, the tests are running. That's great. But the most interesting thing to me about the tests is the fact that they included a performance test. And I want to show you a recent set of data now that the tests have landed. So if we look at this link, this is the perf herder graphs. Like perf herder is the tool we use to like examine data, performance data and build data from our continuous integration. And I want to look at Windows 10 64-bit shippable builds, and I want to look at the about home startup tests, both the normal case and the cached case. And the cached one is the test that we added. And I'm going to plot the graphs over time. And so two things kind of jump out. The first is kind of unfortunate, and that's this jump up here. In this case, this graph that we're looking at, like lower is better and higher is worse. And this these dark dots that my mouse is tracking here, this is all the startup about home paint without the cache. And there's a bit of a jump here. This is an unrelated jump. We've identified what the problem is. It's going to be, a fix will be landed shortly, but this is unrelated. So let's ignore this jump. What's more interesting, and coincidentally happens just before that jump, is this introduction of a new set of dots, which is our about home startup test with the cache enabled. So it's the same test, but with the cache turned on. And you can see immediately that there is an improvement, a marked improvement. And that's good. That means that like the cache is actually having an impact and that we can measure it, at least in our continuous integration. That's like the first step. And that means that what's also kind of interesting is because this particular test doesn't have the cache. Like the dots up here don't have the cache. We have this jump up here. You don't see a jump for the same revision. Like this revision 7, I don't know if you can read the revision number. That's 7F0B0 sub like landed on 8:43:29 UTC on June 18th. This is the same build. And that's the build where the jump up occurred for the non-cached case. In the cached case, there is no jump. None whatsoever. And that's really interesting. That's an interesting piece of information. It means that the regression that was caused, that caused this jump, does not affect the cached case, which is good for our users. Like, were we to turn this cache on, that would mean that these kinds of regressions wouldn't actually impact startup anymore, which is good for the majority of cases, because there are some cases where the cache doesn't work. But for the majority of cases, that regression would not have been felt by users at all. And that's a good thing, because the difference is pretty stark. That's 467 milliseconds approximately for repeated warm startups. That's like, I think the geometric mean of milliseconds from process start to painting about home is about half a second. And in the regression case, it's closer to about 815 milliseconds, just closer to almost 1 second. So that's quite a difference. It's pretty much double. Just a little under double, and we're preventing our users from feeling that, at least on nightly. We actually haven't turned this cache on yet in nightly. If you're interested, I haven't turned it on in nightly. I haven't really told anyone about it to turn on, but if you beloved audience are interested in checking it out, I'll show you how you can turn it on if you want to try it, if you're running nightly. So if you are running nightly right now and you go to here, let me pump up my terminal. I'll run a build and I'll show you how to do it. So this is a nightly build that I have here. I'm just going to run it real quick. Okay, so this is this build that I have here is, I don't believe, with the cache turned on. So I'm going to start by going to about config, and I'm going to type in this just about home, and this is the pref that we're looking for: browser startup homepage about home cache enabled. So I'm going to put that in test out the cache. This is the pref to test out the cache. So this is the pref that you can flip to true. And then it takes a couple of restarts because we've turned it on, but because it wasn't turned on at the start of the session, that means the cache is not created yet. So we shut down. We're going to shut down now. And now we're going to restart. And this still doesn't have the cache because, the cache is created after the process starts with the cache prefed on. So at this point now, the cache should have been created. So we can actually verify that by going to About Cache and looking at the disk cache entries. And there should be one for About Home. Here it is. And we can see it's kind of like a binary representation of the cache entry that was created. And so now if we restart the browser, I shut down now and I'll restart the browser, this should now be the cache document. And the way I can tell is by opening up the inspector and looking at the actual DOM of the page. And if I look at the inspector, it will tell me there's a comment in here that says when this document was cached. It was cached earlier today. It's in GMT times, so you kind of have to do a little bit of like time zone math in your head, but this was cached about a minute ago. Unsurprisingly, that's what we expected. So that's how you can turn it on and test it out. And this page, now that we've got the cache more or less working, behaves just like any other About Home page. It just loads faster. One of the problems with it, and this is something that I think we had experienced a couple weeks ago and I was trying to debug, is that flash that occurs after the initial document loads. So watch again. We're gonna, I don't know if you saw that. I'm gonna do it again. And there's some cases where a flash will occur and it happens up here in top sites. It's pretty easy to see. Hopefully you saw the flash in the pocket stories. There's another one that occurs if there's a screenshot in either the highlights or the in the top site section. So let's actually add a screenshot. What I'll do is I'll go to my personal blog, mikeconley.ca, check it out, and I'm gonna add it as a site on the top sites, my blog. So we add it, and then in a couple of seconds, a screenshot should be generated. So a screenshot thumbnail there is generated. So I want you to really pay attention. Actually, what I'll do is I'll drag this over far left. Pay attention to this this screenshot whenever we load the document, the cache document. So let's shut down and restart. Notice that the image faded in. That's one thing, but I think if you see it again here, it'll flash sometimes as well. It'll just like flicker. And these are the things that I'm wanting to avoid. I mean, part of the whole reason of the cache is to load quickly and then just stop. That's the goal. And so all these like leftover bits where we're sorting out the DOM after the document's already been constructed is a real waste, and it adds strain and it makes the browser feel like it's working and it doesn't feel fast. And so I've been investigating what this is, and I've more or less centered in on the problem. And the problem is that we have this pre-existing Redux store that exists in the content process that is being restored, or this Redux state that is being pulled out of the cache that exists in this document before ActivityStream in the parent process has even had a chance to initialize. Then ActivityStream in the parent process initializes, and because it doesn't know which documents are cached and which aren't, it sends an initialization message to every single tab. In this case, there's just one. It says, here is everything you need to do to construct your state. And because the state already exists, a bunch of that stuff ends up overwriting parts of the internal state, and that's what causes the flash. It's almost as if, we're getting a little bit of a brain transplant because the parent process thinks we don't have any state yet. So I've been talking a little bit with the ActivityStream people, the people who manage this page, and we've centered in on a solution, we think, and that is basically annotating the messages that get sent down during the startup phase and then making it so that a content process or a page here that has the cached document will ignore any of the startup messages. And if we do that, I believe we end up avoiding all of these problems. We end up avoiding all of the flashes. So that's what I'm hoping we can do, at least partially today. SmurfD says, I think that if you reload the About Home page in Nightly, it looks different than Unstable, i.e. it reloads all. I'm not sure what you mean. If you reload About Home page in Nightly, it looks different than Unstable. It reloads all. So what does Stable do? Let's open up Stable. This is actually beta. I'm not sure what you're talking about, SmurfD. SmurfD, it reloads all buttons and cards. In Stable, it basically only reloads the cards. That's not been my experience, and I don't know why that would be. Because when you reload, we reload the whole document. Maybe visually it just seems like it's reloading only the cards. Curious. Anyways, let us do the work now. I haven't started any of the work, the plumbing to annotate all those messages to indicate that they're startup messages, but that's what I'm hoping to do today. So let's get started. I think what I'm going to do though is I'm going to clean up a bunch of these open files that I've got. I'm just going to get rid of them. Let's not keep these open. Let's just start from scratch. Blah, 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 blah. Don't need any of this like text. Okay, we're going to start from scratch. Here we go. So the first thing I want to look at is the init message and maybe pref's initial values. Let's see here. I also have my my action catalog, and this is useful because I ended up writing out what each of these actions does, so that might be handy. What does pref's initials value do? Pref's initial value sets the initial preferences state in About Home Redux store, causes the section manager to init for top sites feed to refresh some internal state. Yeah, we don't want that. Okay, so let us start with this init message actually first. Where does it come from? Init. Generic action is dispatched to wake a number of components up and have them initialized. Dispatch to content in About New tab on browser ready via activity stream init. Okay, so let's start there. About New tab .jsm in on browser ready in activity stream init. So let's take a look at activity stream.jsm. We're going to look at a init function. And then it broadcasts to content. Now let's take a look at this broadcast to content function. It takes an action as an argument. And then we're also passing in, I guess, the description of the action were we to decide to uninit. So I think what I want to do, broadcast content action, route message action, route message, what does route message do? Takes in options. So you can pass a set of options. Not options. From to. Add them. Actually, if they are not defined, remove them. From to target. Otherwise, we remove them. And then we get this. So I think what we want to do is add a like is startup. meta. Options, action dot meta. So you can already have like meta on the action. Action.meta. That's interesting. I might not actually have to plumb a bunch of stuff through here. I just have to find all the places where we initialize like this. And then if I go like meta is startup true, it sounds like that will get sent down. And maybe we can verify that. The way I want to verify that, oh, wait. Well, that took a minute, I guess. The Excel sheet, I mean, yeah, it took a while to put that Excel sheet together. That was a long bit of research there and how each of those work. So let's see, how do I want to diagnose this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the generated activity stream bundle. This is like the generated JavaScript, and I just don't want to have to worry about the I don't want to have to worry about rebuilding and rebundling and running Webpack and all that stuff every time. So I'm actually going to work on the generated file. I know that's probably really gross and like the code is not pleasant to look at, but this is just easier for me for now while I'm doing some debugging. So let's see here. Add message listener. AS router utils. Blah de blah. Here we go. I think it's here. Global RPM at init store incoming message name. We dispatch. Okay. So here's where I want to try logging this stuff. If store dot, oh wait, if message dot meta dot is startup. I don't think we need to. What I'll do is dump got startup action and then message dot action dot, what is it, message dot action dot type, or maybe it's message dot data dot type, message dot data. Oh, it's what? Message, incoming message. We get the message, store dispatch, message.data. Now, it's a little confusing. Message.data doesn't actually refer to this. Data is a little overloaded here. Message.data will refer to the entire block of information. So there's actually a message.data.data, which is really annoying. But I think what I want to do is message.data.meta.isStartup, and then I can do message.data.type. That's what I want to do. All right, let's see if this works. We're going to shut down, build faster, and we're going to run. Yay! So yeah, that's going to work, I think, is if we have a startup action that we can ignore. So I'm going to actually keep this here. And what I'll do now is I'm going to put in this message in the rehydration middleware. I say if window.from startup cache and action.meta.isStartup return null, otherwise return next. So what happens if we just ignore that message? Let's see. We're going to ignore the init message. How's my stream quality here? I've only dropped 169 frames. Well, that's good. So having ignored the init message, the page still seems to behave properly. Still click on stuff. Okay, so that might have worked. Let us now start decorating some more messages, some more actions. Where does pref's initial values get fired from? Here in pref's feed. Inside init. Yeah, I know is startup might not be the right. I wonder if is startup isn't right. It's like is initting. Maybe that's better. Is initting. Because I guess in theory, activity stream can be shut down and then restarted up again. So we just want to ignore if we're initting, not necessarily starting. Start init. Let's see what my reviewer says. Anyways, pref's feed. So inside dispatch, broadcast to content, we're going to say type, data, meta, initting, is initting, true. Oh, wait. So let us now build. See which ones we can ignore. Good. So hopefully now we've ignored both of those actions. Let's actually do something that's a little more exciting. I think, because certainly I'm going to want to get through all of these, but let's try and get rid of some of the flicker. And some of the flicker, like I'm aware of where the flicker comes from. And that is whenever we are, at least for the top sites, it's whenever you fire top sites updated and then screenshot updated. So what I'm going to do is go to top sites feed and top sites updated. So what I'm going to do is whenever we call refresh, let's refresh is initting true. Bool options is initting being called while top sites feed is initting being called. And then we're gonna say broadcast content if options broadcast if options dot is initting new action dot meta equals is initting true. Okay, and then it's also the screenshots that are gathered. The screenshot updating. Screenshot updated. So fetch screenshot happens down here. Get links with defaults is called here. In refresh, we're going to say is initting options and we're going to say fetch Fetch screenshot. Link is initting. You know what? I'm going to put at the end is initting. Meta. Okay. So I believe, if I'm correct, to do, it's like param is initting true, whether top sites feed is initting well, whether the screenshot is fetched while initting. Pardon me, I'm about to... Oh man, I lost the sneeze. How unsatisfying. Oh, I don't know. Brutal. Oh, it's just like hovering in the background. Stare into the light. Look into the light. Go into the light. Nothing. Oh, and now I can't see. I got retina burn. I can't even see my screen. Now screenshot updated, it looks like it wasn't part of the, so I actually saw the flicker despite my retina burn. I did see the flicker. Top sites updated was captured, but screenshot updating was not, or screenshot updated was not. Did I not update the caller? Is initting. Oh, options dot is initting. That's why. Huh, I still saw it, still saw the flash. So what's going on here? Are we not entering this branch? Oh, you know what? We're not doing a custom screenshot URL. We are fetching. What would we be doing here? Fetch screenshot. Fetch icon. That's why. Fetch icon. So it's like is initting equals false. Initting. Fetch icon. A couple of different branches here, so there's going to be like a lot of testing that we're going to need, I think, to make sure there's no flicker. Maybe need to find a way of writing an automated test, make sure all these messages get absorbed. Yay, no flicker, and our screenshot message was absorbed. Let's run that again. So this is still rebuilding, and I suspect, if I remember correctly, that's because of causes top sites to lose their thumbs, causes top sites flash, causes Pocket Stories redraw is discovery stream Spock's endpoint. So let's see what happens, or let's see where that's being fired from. Oops, wrong one. Here. Send up it no, in load layout. And there's already an is startup. That's great. That's great. Discovery, stream feed, send layout. What's it called? Load layout. There's already an is startup, so I can work with that. Meta is initting is startup. So maybe I should just call it is startup. I don't know. That's pretty easy to fix once, you know, a patch is written. Hey, look at that. No flash. Now, we could probably do without these fading in. I can probably find a way of doing that, but like the fact that there's no flash is really great. Oh, no fade in that time. There's a bit of a race of some kind. Some kind of race. Interesting. Oh, I think I know what it is. If you shut down at a particular time, like it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to explain. But we've eliminated that flash. We're in good shape here, folks. Are there other messages we want to avoid? Maybe section register? Section manager, when on add section, there's already an options thing. That's great. Add section during init. Add section ID and then section. We can add like is startup. What's it called? Sections manager? Sections manager. True. Startup. Is initting. So if we're initting, wait, nope, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Don't want that. It's like this. Let's build faster. I never got that sneeze. Usually the sneezes like hit me, but I never got that sneeze. So section register is ignored. Let's see here. Let's see. Section update. Oh, and all these discovery stream things. Recommendation provider. Set version. What is it? Recommendation provider switcher. Recommendation provider switcher. So we're going to say init. We're going to say true is initting. And then we're going to say meta is initting. That should get us that next one. Whoop. What's going on here? There we go. Where's my sneeze? Everything's going so well, but I lost that sneeze. Drop a beat. Where's my sneeze? Debugging with great ease. I'm using Sublime Text. I wish I had some Kleenex. Then I'd blow my nose. I'd use a hose to clean my sinus. I hope there's no virus around my house. I don't want COVID. That's not what I want. There's a little freestyle rap there for you. So we got our personalization version also captured. That's great. What's next? Config setup. I'm just in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about as well which, like how I want to test this. So I'm like keeping that in the back of my head. It'd be nice, like hopefully there's a way. Actually, I think I know what I can do. ActivityStream was designed so that you can, in theory, just shut it down and start it back up again. So I load the page, I have the cache document, I shut it down, I start it up, and I ensure that nothing is dispatched on the store. That's what I'm going to do. And that way, if any new messages get introduced, they'll cause that test to break. And that's great. That's my plan. Things are going too easily. I'm very worried. Because when things go this easily, that's when, you're having an easy time. Is initting. That's when the universe shows up and is like, hey, not so fast. I should yeah. Oh no, can I do that? Yeah, it's an object. It'll complain if I don't. Whoop. Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of linting that we have that makes sure that we have comma terminating or trailing commas. Exactly, Smurf D. Famous last words. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I am talking about. Dismissible toggle. So this one should also now be suppressed. Let's test that. Yep. Good news. And then section register. And then section update. I need to do that one next. Sections manager, section update. On update section. All right, so it happens here. Who calls that on update section? So there's like a, if you somehow something calls update section, sections manager, update section. So who emits update section? Oh, here on update section. Section manager, sorry, in update section. So who calls update section? On update section prefs, enable section. That could be it. All right, well, probably the easiest way to do this. Update section. Let's find the method here, and we're gonna just dump a stack. Update section. Sorry for the sniffles. I really should have some Kleenex down here to blow my nose. Oh, you know what? I might actually have some in my pocket. Yes, I do, because I've got seasonal allergies. This is not COVID, it's seasonal allergies. This one of the, pardon me, that was probably a high resolution nose blowing. One of the disadvantages of living in the Northern Hemisphere right now, where things are getting warmer, is, at least for me, I have seasonal allergies. So, okay. So in post init on highlights feed, in section manager, init, emit, handler, post init, what the hell? All right, so when section manager on line 205 emits init, then in highlights feed, '97, something called post init, once initialized. Once initialized, then you do post init, and then you say enable section ID, and then fetch highlights. Okay. Well, enable section. That's what I'm gonna add a method here. Is initting equals false, and then is initting. Should broadcast is initting equals false. This emit update sections should broadcast is initting. Update section on update. There's so much indirection here. Is initting false. And perfect. We can go meta. Great. I think that'll do it. No, it did not. I was expecting section update to be in there. Update section bind. So update section is initting. I say dump updating section is initting. Printf debugging. Not my favorite, but whenever it's during the startup window, sometimes it's the only thing you can do. Well, not always, but updating section is initting false. So that's the problem. Update section is being called, but we're not initting. How about enable section? Is initting. Scoop doop doop doo. No. Enable section is not initting. So when does that get called? Section enable. on section enable. Wait, what? Section manager enable section. Highlight feed. Enable. Oh, post init. I got. It's this part. Enable section. True is initting. Yeah. Now this one's enabling section is initting false. So what one's that for? It's probably a different feed that's doing this. Section manager, enable section, highlights feed, sections manager, and top stories feed. Top stories feed. And anything else? Sections manager on section enable, no. Okay, let's take a look. Smurfd asks, what temperature do you have in Canada? Super hot here, like 30 degrees Celsius. So in where I live in Toronto, in the greater Toronto area, right now I think it's like mid-20s degrees Celsius. So it's close. It's not up to 30. It was up to 30 earlier this week. It was very humid, and then there was a storm. So the heat broke. So there's another updating section is initting false here I want to understand. But like got these two. That's good. So what's updating section is initting? So if not is initting dump stack. Stack in fetch highlights and highlights feed, and then updates a section. Fetch highlights. Oh, right here. So here we probably want to like include an is initting true. Should broadcast options.is initting. I guess I'll return undefined if it's not defined, so that's fine. Update section. And update section is prepared for that, right? Update section, yeah, as the fourth argument. All right. So let's build that. Oh, come on now. That's not expected. False 1, 2, 3, 4, and highlights feed. Options. Is initting. Undefined. Undefined. So that's why. Highlights feed. Fetch highlights is being called with is initting. So how's that happening? Is initting stack. Do-ba-do-do-do-do-do. Scuba. Hey! There's nothing on the stack. 286, then 288. Highlights feed is initting undefined on 286. There's nothing on the stack. What? So what's called? What is? Oh, because we're resuming probably. I'm gonna move this up. This is an async function, that's why. Shkoo-boo-boo, shkoo-boo-boo. In top sites, feed 525, refresh, which is something I'm already familiar with. We are broadcasting a new action. And then middleware, we're firing an action on action 322. This action that we're firing is top sites updated. So action highlights feed 322. Top sites updated. This is how it's happening. Broadcast. If we're, oh, okay. Is initting will be action.meta is initting. It's kind of sloppy. But should work. This is not my favorite way of doing this. All this annotation. But messages, actions can beget actions, and that's what's going wrong here. True, true, true. Okay, so we've got all our actions here. I'm gonna get rid of our dumps. There's one over here. Cool. All right, what about some of these discovery stream, like all of these things? Load affinity scores cache. What causes this? And refresh all is startup. Ooh, I can use that. Okay, discovery stream feed. Refresh all. Load affinity scores. Options is startup. Is startup equals false. Or not, it's is initting. meta knitting. What were the other messages? Layout update. Load layout. Also within his startup. This is great. Send update. Send update is some kind of function that's passed. Oh. How does this work? It's all nested functions. Oh boy. But I think it's just the same as any other. I can just do startup. Yeah, okay. I did it before. I can do it again. Scuba-da-ba! Smurf D is like, you have a bunch of duplicates at the end. I presume you mean at the end of this list. Is that this was just a log of all the messages that came in. In this case, I had a bunch of screenshots and a bunch of cards. So it's like you get one message per card. And so I don't think it will mean I have to do like individual spot fixes for each one. I think they'll all be captured, but I'll want to like attempt like test with various configurations. And that's kind of tricky. Like about one of the really, really tricky things about software like Firefox, which is highly customizable, is that all of the variations it can be in, you can unit test. Unit testing is great, but when you have a whole bunch of different components and they are all like individually customizable and can have different settings and whatnot, then the integration of the whole thing and all these different states, like the larger system as a whole, becomes a very difficult thing to test because of all of the like the matrix, the combinatorial explosion of all the different configurations that you need to test. It is no longer possible to test everything. So that's one of the drawbacks. Rubba-doo-boo-boo. Okay, so where are we here? We got Spock's endpoint. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bolding or crossing out the ones that are done. Actually, you know what I should do is turn this into a big ol' checkbox list. Can I do that? Nope. Nope. I have to cut this out. What I'll do is I'll copy and I'll just add to the bottom. I don't mind duplicating information in my notes. Well, I didn't want to create a new tab. I wanted to create checkboxes. So here's where I'll eliminate the duplicates. Wait, screenshot updated and update card. Okay, here are all the messages. And I think we've got a good chunk of them done. And looking at the time, we might get them all done and then we can close out the episode and we'll be in really good shape. At least to get something up for review feedback. There might be a bunch of cases I'm not considering here. I might, you know, the folks who manage this stuff, who are ultimately the owners of this code, might not be happy with the way I've done things. That's okay. We can find a compromise, a solution. Section register, section updates done, discovery stream layout update, Spock's endpoint, and then top sites updated, and then section update, and then what is it? Screenshot updated. Okay. Let's do this one next. Discovery stream personalization last updated. Section update, you also have fourth from the bottom. 2, 3, 4. I don't. 2, 3, 4. Did I get it? Oh yeah, I duplicated it. You're right. There were a couple of duplicates in there. Thank you. Thank you, Smurf D. Always my second pair of eyes. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay. So we dispatch here in discovery stream feed. And it looks like at least this one we've got with it is initting. And then there's another one over here with update domain affinity scores. And who calls this? Untitled Daily it's called. This one we might actually want to keep, because this happens on Idle Daily. And that's not during initialization. So we're going to personalization last updated. We got one of them, which is here. But I'm not going to do the other one. And the reason it's not showing up, I think, is because for this profile, I don't think personalization is turned on. I actually can turn that on. Personalization. Can I turn it on? Whoa, what is up with the formatting here? Something, there was a bug there. Let's reload. What was up with that? What is going on? Look at this. Did I do this? With the code I've added? Hold up. Shelve. Let's shelve our changes. Oh, wait. So, hang on. No, I didn't mean to. Wow. Hang on. And then unshelve. Shelve and unshelve, just for the curious while we're waiting, are the mercurial equivalent of git stash and git stash pop. Very handy. If you just want to see a before and after, almost like onion skinning a drawing. What's going on with the layout before? Maybe I just had a weird build configuration. Build. Or like just a broken cache. Like, what was that? You saw that. It's in the video recording where the layout just all looked all funny. Spooky. Spooky stuff. All right. Let's move on. Spock's placements. That happens in Discovery Stream feed again. Update placements. Who calls update placements? In load layout. So we have an is startup here. Is startup. Meta. Knitting is startup. Check out my mug. Check out this mug. Huh? Got that R2-D2 action. Spock's placements done. Feed update. Feed update. Score feeds, build feed promise. Has an is startup, very nice. Retry feed. Okay. Oh, you couldn't see. Sorry, I apologize. Check it out. I showed it to the wrong camera. That's why I showed it to the wrong camera. This is my R2D2 mug. Check it out. Legit. Needs more coffee in it. But this episode of The Joy of Coding is brought to you by Droids. Is that a copyrighted slogan or a copyrighted name? Who knows? Droids, get a droid today. Hey, we've got our weird layout thing happening again. I got a feeling this is like a layout. You know what? I saw something like this. I got a feeling it's a nightly problem and not like an activity stream problem related to what we're doing. I believe it's a nightly problem. What happens if I don't scroll down quickly? Yeah. It's the scrolling down quickly. What the heck? So let's see if I can reproduce that. If I shelve all my patches, all my changes. What's the next one out of curiosity, though? Because I think we got feed update, right? Yeah, we got feed update. Spock's update. Yeah. Send update. Meta is initting. Oh, shoot. I should not have done that while Mercurial was doing its thing. Whoops. E-daisy. Hopefully I haven't ruined everything. Greetings and Fedamina. Greetings from Italy. Buonasera. What time is it over there? Buonanotte. How do you, I don't know what I'm saying. I barely know the language. So I can't reproduce it right now. I had it before. It's 8 p.m. according to Amphetamina. Excellent. So this might be a bug in our patches. Well, greetings from Italy. I love your country. I went there. I traveled there when I got married. I went there for my honeymoon as part of our honeymoon. And I love Italy. Just the weather couldn't have been better. I think we went in September. So it wasn't too hot. It was nice, like just comfortable weather. And, you know, I'm a nerd. I like museums and I like good food. Like I love Italian food. So it had everything I needed. Yeah, I love Italy. Love Italy so much. See, now it's not happening. This is a weird intermittent problem. Oh, now it happened. Okay. I'm gonna say this is a pretty serious problem. What happens if I don't scroll and then I scroll down, then it fills out nicely. So somehow it like relays itself out in a way that's nice if I don't scroll immediately. I'm gonna have to like take a to-do. To-dos. Figure out why when I fast scroll after loading the cache, layout looks like garbage. And then I'm gonna post a screenshot in my notes. So here's a screenshot. Okay, that's for later. All right, screenshot updated. Discovery Stream feed update. That's done. Spock's update is done. Feeds update. Feeds update. Oh, yes. I love it when stuff that I already need is there. What else? What other things do I have to say about Italy? I hear you're doing a lot better with the virus. I hear things are going way better now over there. So congratulations, because it was really scary for a little while. I have colleagues and friends who live in Italy, so I was really worried about them. But now it seems like things are really under control. If you look at the curve, of number of new infections, it's really ramped down. Very impressive work from the the folks working on the front lines, and like the population that's been locking down. Really, really great. So feeds update, that's done. Update search shortcuts is next. Where's that one? Probably the search service. Do I have other nice things to say about Italy? Yeah, I love your food. I mean, what's not to love? I know that's like really sort of the stereotype is, oh, Italian food's incredible. But it's true. I mean, Italian food's incredible. I've never had a bad plate of food that I've ordered in Italy. Never. We have a restaurant in Toronto, in the GTA. If you go downtown, there's a place called Italy, spelled, hang on, how do I communicate this? Italy, like with the word eat in it, or is it italy.ca? Italy, Alti Cibi, and this is where you go if you want like real Italian food, like where the produce that they use is, I don't know if it's shipped from Italy, but it's like the people who are making it have been to Italy and know what Italian food tastes like, and they make their food taste like that. So check it out. And it's also like a grocery store. This stream is brought to you by Italy, Alti Cibi. Check it out if you're in downtown Toronto. Okay, update custom search shortcuts. Is that the only place? Fires from Topsite's feed. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, so this might be a place where you have to plumb through a thing. Yeah, init is true. Is initting. Booyah. Other countries I love that I've been to. Let's see. I was in Germany relatively recently, a couple months ago. I like Germany. A lot of history, obviously. I learned a lot of history while I was over there. I visited a lot of museums. Again, I'm a big nerd, so I visit the museums. My wife and I would just tour museums and read up on the local history and whatnot. So learned a lot, especially in Berlin, especially about the Cold War and Second World War, Nazi Germany, the fall of the Berlin Wall, all that stuff. I never really understood how awkwardly placed Berlin was. I'm just an ignorant Canadian, and my geographic sense of how Europe works is poor. My sense of history is poor. I was taught very poorly history-wise. No knocks to my history teachers. They did their best. It's just I didn't learn. But I finally understood looking at a map, like, oh, holy smokes, that's why it was so awkward. Berlin is right in the middle of the Soviet Union, or not in the middle, but it was like inside the Soviet Union. There's a little pocket of, non-Soviet controlled territory inside Berlin, and that was so awkward. So there's a note from Amphetamina. Can I ask you a question? Which may sound dumb. Of course you can ask me a question. I love questions. Send them in. If Mozilla decides to hire me as a software engineer and they get me working on this project, do I need to reverse engineer all the code trying to get the logic behind it and then start being productive? What is the real approach? Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it really depends on what part of the code base you end up working on, like which sub-team, supposing you apply and you get accepted, or even if you were to like volunteer time, depending on which area of the code base you're working in, some of it's better documented than others. So sometimes you might be able to like read some documentation and get a sense of the mental model of like how the pieces fit together. Some of it is not, though, especially the older parts are not really well documented. And so you're not usually on your own, though. Even if if you're staff, if you're hired by Mozilla, but even if you're not, you have access to the Matrix channel. Matrix is like the chat system that we use at Mozilla. And there are Matrix channels that you can communicate with people who have like they understand how parts of this thing work, and you can ask them questions directly. And you see that all the time, especially for people who are new hires or new volunteers, and they're just trying to get their feet embedded in the code and trying to understand as they ask questions. And like people who are more familiar will answer the questions and walk them through stuff. And one of the things that I like to do, especially if I'm exploring new and unfamiliar code, is I look at the tests, look to see how the tests work. Start from the tests and see what's tested, because the tests are going to show you what's expected. And they're not going to be fully comprehensive, but it'll at least give you a place to get started. And that's usually the hardest, or no, I shouldn't say it's the hardest. It's the most important part, is to actually get started reading the code. Because yes, you can read all the documentation, you can talk to people and they can whiteboard and stuff. But once you start actually dig around in the code, that's when you're probably going to get the clearest sense of what's actually happening. And while Firefox's code base is humongous, it's absolutely true. It's humongous, millions of lines of code. It's broken up into modules, and it's reasonably modular, so that no one, like I've been working on this code for almost 10 years, and I do not have it all in my head. But there are patterns that emerge, and there are components that I certainly know better than other components. But just because I know like nothing about a component over there doesn't mean I can't be like a real domain expert of a component elsewhere. Like it's broken up into these little buckets like that. So you don't have to reverse engineer the whole thing. Like I don't even know where the main entry point is. I don't know if I could find the int main of Firefox. I could probably if I tried real hard. But I think I remember doing that whenever I first started working at Mozilla. I was working on Thunderbird, and I tried to find int main so I could just like step through the entire application from like, oh, hang on, someone's at the door. This might be a good opportunity to stop, actually. I heard a doorbell. So I'm going to go. I'm afraid we didn't get all of the messages. We didn't get all the actions redirected, but almost. We're almost done. I'm just going to finish those off, and then I'm going to file a bug about this and try to figure out what's going on. But I'm going to call it here. Thank you so much for watching episode 219 of The Joy of Coding. Tune in next week where we have special guest, presuming all goes well, we'll have special guest Yuri Wims, who will be with me, and we're going to hack on something. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we're going to figure something out. So check it out next week. Same time, same place. See you then. And with that, we're going to call it. So take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace. See ya.